In the age of social media, there has and probably forever will be people arguing the clearest of facts. In the video game space, there will be those that say a critically acclaimed game is trash and vice versa. Now, the sports video game fandom is no different whatsoever. From FIFA, MLB, to heck, even the long-awaited and highly regarded College Football 25, there has always been these small wars being waged online about what classifies as good and bad quality sports games. Funny enough, despite the war of words regarding honestly any topic on the internet, I have never seen a sports game fanbase as in sync as I did when Take-Two released NBA 2K11, and it remained that way up until about NBA 2K16. Now, objectively, it is clear that the NBA 2K franchise at this point in 2015 solidified numerous titles into classics, establishing essentially complete unity between both fans and critics on the topic of the good quality with these games. Fast forward to now though, and that unity is still very much the same, but it is not in the agreement that the NBA 2K franchise is so great, but rather that it has rotted to the core. So, as somebody who admires the history of video game studios who have slowly become better and better with each title, from Naughty Dog, Rockstar, Sony Santa Monica, and there are probably several others, I now wonder how the NBA 2K franchise ended up in this state. Is the bar just set so high for this franchise? Are our expectations just unrealistic at this point? Has the franchise just become used to no longer having competition? There are so many questions that you could ask, but let's just save some time and find the core reason why the NBA 2K franchise by Visual Concepts just isn't the same as it used to be. To do that, let's start to the present and talk about the gameplay of NBA 2K25. In terms of presentation, everything is there. I mean, you have 3/4 of the NBA TNT crew.
Thanks for tuning in. Did you miss us? Before we discuss
A music video to hype you up before games, a beautiful and almost futuristic scoreboard that is fused with a ticker. The commentary teams also have a nice balance when it comes to talking about the game at hand and all things NBA. Heck, there's even halftime shows and post-game interviews. But where it falls short in the game is this odd thing that 2K has picked up over the last few years. It's absolutely stiff. Players feel like they're contained to running on invisible tracks, AI teammates don't really create space as much as you'd like them to, and most importantly, the shot meter is like a lock on the basket, and the perfect timing green light is the key. About 90% of all shots won't go in unless you perfectly time them, and those who have actually played the game of basketball know there's some luck involved sometimes.
He'll take it, he'll backpedal, a three for the win, and goal!
With that being said, it's still fun-ish, but it feels as if the gameplay is like against the player. I'm not alone in thinking this either. The community itself is kind of in agreement on these key factors, and there are way more problems with 2K25, but let's first explore what made those older 2Ks so loved, and why we all sing the praises of NBA 2K developer Visual Concepts during that time. Although NBA 2K10 and others before it did bolster Visual Concepts' reputation in a time where NBA Live was leading the basketball video game charge, NBA 2K11 went above and beyond anything either franchise has ever done before. Honoring arguably the greatest of all time, the game stood out by not only having Michael Jordan in several classic teams in the game, but also Jordan challenges that relived his career's biggest moments. It functioned as an interactive museum in a way, allowing younger fans to understand his importance to the game and the incredible rival teams he played against. In short, it was a love letter to basketball and a visual lesson to those who wanted to learn about the greatest of all time objectively. Aside from the Jordan challenges, 2K11 even included a My Player mode where the only currency you need to use was XP to improve stats. It also featured a full-blown Blacktop mode with slam dunk and three-point contest, outdoor games with even celebrities like Drake, Snoop Dogg, and Bow Wow. The Association, aka Dynasty mode, even started to dazzle with customization, finally allowing players to customize a league with classic and created teams. On the court, it was clear NBA 2K11 was only the foundation for what was yet to come. The dribbling stick had yet to exist at this point, and there are way less defensive controls than to be desired. That said, there are still several accurate animations, and overall it was fair to players. Any player could actually hit an open shot, but put the ball in the hands of maybe MJ or LeBron, and they would barely ever miss, unlike in 2K25, where it feels like only star players have a decent chance of hitting open shots, and everyone else will probably shoot for 20% at best. Now, I spoke about how 2K11 had its Jordan challenges and introduced classic teams for the first time ever in a basketball game, and that was its identity. What made great NBA 2Ks were the fact that they were distinguished from one another and didn't just feel like a yearly release slop. They had an identity that revolved around the game of basketball, promoting at least one element of the game or its history. For instance, for 2K12, it prided itself on being an interactive basketball museum altogether regarding the whole entire league, having historical challenges for not just Jordan, but Magic, Bird, Russell, Kareem, and way more. Heck, when you booted up the game, you were met by a highlight reel of legendary players with the signature track Basketball by Curtis Blow in the background, essentially signaling to the player that 2K12 was a love letter to the whole entire league's history. Fast forward to the next year, and 2K13 built its own identity too, showcasing the marriage between basketball and hip-hop, making that point clear with Jay-Z as its executive producer. It even opened with the rapper performing over highlights of animated star players. To beef up this concept even more, graphics of sound waves, speakers, and instruments were splattered throughout the menus. In-game, you were even met by the official music video of one of the tracks in the soundtrack, or a hype video of your next matchup with some Jay-Z over it. It just felt like this massive celebration of the sport in general, which isn't something you could say about at least the last half-decade of NBA 2K games. Although the rest of 2K13's mode and gameplay offerings were just extensions of the last two games, I do want to shout out Creating a Legend. The mode in almost every facet was a mirror of my player, though it allowed you to step in the shoes of either a current or former player. From there, you can change the trajectory of their career by asking for trades, upping skills that they would never have in real life, like heck, James Harden having defense for once, and securing championships and various other trophies. This was like 2K's version of Marvel's What If scenario, allowing you to see what could have happened if a bust actually became a star, such as Anthony Bennett, or if LeBron stayed in Miami for the rest of his career. Yes, the game did begin to lean into the world of microtransactions, including VC into my player, as well as offering my team for the very first time, but it wasn't begging you for your wallet in any way, nor did it even push players to those modes with ads or in-menu pop-ups. Overall, if you want to summarize this era of 360 and PS3 2Ks to the modern crowd, it would probably be this. The graphics were far from being ahead of their time, but the heart and meaning of 2K was there. Gameplay was arcadey, fast, and fair to the player, and most importantly, it was just fun NBA basketball games. Now, you cannot argue one bit, there was no greater leap than that of NBA 2K13 to NBA 2K14. Playing these games in consecutive years, you wouldn't believe that the same company made both games, but they did. Visual Concepts swung for the fences with its first entry on Xbox One and PS4, bringing a new eco-motion engine to the series. In result, the lighting on the courts became something that needed to be hung in the Louvre. Absolutely immaculate, to say the least, and the improved character models were so good, the game made national headlines. You could even say that they look better than in 2K25 in some cases. There are a few players that didn't exactly transition well to the new installment, but jerseys flowed with each player's movement. Bulky players like LeBron, Tyson Chandler, Serge Ibaka all looked and felt like freight trains, true to their real-life counterparts. The presentation even took a massive leap, including dialogue adapted to real-time events, whether your team's earning win streaks, maybe you're even playing in a rivalry game or making huge trades. The commentators would talk about it, and honestly, the commentary from 2K14 to 2K16 was arguably the best in my mind. You can tell the chemistry between Kevin Harlan, Clark Kellogg, and Steve Kerr was organic. Jokes and laughs just felt real. They felt unscripted. Going back to the lighting too, I invite anyone to take a look at NBA 2K25's courts compared to 2K14. The lighting just feels lazy, flat, and unrealistic. You've gone to games, it's evident that the crowds behind the baskets are actually highly visible, not hiding behind the shadows, and the lighting and these shadows reflect off the court, which somehow is not evident to the development team of 2K25. Off the court though, everyone can agree, NBA 2K14 lacked a lot. Although it did have a Creating a Legend-esque mode specifically for LeBron, rightfully called the Path to Greatness, this was the only title without a franchise mode, crew mode, create a team feature, dunk contests, and draft combines. Though it did have My GM, and it also introduced something called The Park, NBA 2K's first attempt at a full-blown social hub within a basketball simulator, which, as we all know, has started to become their downfall. If NBA 2K14 was just a technical demo, then NBA 2K16 was the fully realized vision of what Visual Concepts was capable of. In the era of the Currys and the Kyries of the world, they knew they had to improve dribbling greatly in order for players to mimic their real-life skills. So they did just that with the revamped Pro Stick dribbling, allowing for precise dribbles and skill moves. On top of that, the AI was so much smarter. Whether it was your teammates or opponents, general player movement was also a step up, along with the general defensive controls. Unlike 14, 16 not only brought back the association, this time in the form of My League, but with several more features from team location, rebranding, customizable rule changes, expansion, and a near perfect simulation of CPU teams, such as opponents knowing the value of their best players and doing their best financially to build or maintain a super team, making My League and also My GM incredibly competitive. On top of that, 2K16 also had a stellar presentation, having authentic commentary in-game once again, but also having that same sort of chemistry before and midway into the games with Ernie Johnson, Shaq, and Kenny Smith giving you inside the NBA style shows. It was obvious Visual Concepts truly cared about the quality of the product and basketball itself, not just in-game. They brought in the one and only Spike Lee to write and direct its My Player story for the year, and although the story itself ultimately ended up falling flat, they didn't have to spend money on or bring in Spike Lee in the first place, but they did anyways, trying to get the best out of every single one of its modes. As for outside of its menus, 2K once again brought on celebrity curators to form the soundtrack, this time with DJ Khaled, DJ Mustard, and DJ Premier running the show and providing a blend of new and old school hip-hop, along with some in-your-face rock and roll and pop that motivated anyone listening to do their very best in their next game. Now, I wouldn't exactly say that this game had a clear identity, but it was evident the developers knew the NBA was in a golden era of basketball, and it made the absolute best of it, emphasizing dribbles so players could truly enjoy the magic of players like Curry, essentially putting in a movie in the game with My Player, and that thorough gameplay even made My Park a great time with friends, promoting fun events also to pit the three rival parks against each other in heated matches. The point is, offline or online, NBA 2K16 used every inch of its power on the PS4 and Xbox One to put the game of basketball on a pedestal. It understood its identity as a franchise was a blend of both realistic and arcadey elements. It was clearly from basketball fans to basketball fans. Now, one last note, a personal one. I played through all of the games that 2K has made since 2003 just for the sake of this video, and it was really easy to put down titles like 2K25, 2K11, 2K13 because either they were outdated or just things I just got annoyed with. But my goodness, 2K16 and 2K17, I just couldn't put down. It was always one more game, okay, one more game, and so on and so forth. At first, I couldn't understand why I was just so addicted to starting a franchise or going into My GM, but I think I finally realized what made 2K16, 2K17, and heck, maybe even 2K18 so much fun, and here's why. I've already mentioned a lot of the core issues that hurt 2K25, but I think the biggest on the court is what I like to call the degrees of separation. See, something like 2K17 or before it, players would have to be phenomenal in real life to have an 80 overall or higher. This ultimately lets you have a blast with superstars, performing the way they would in real life and dropping, 81 on role players.
A drink, Mr. Bryant?
Yeah, I'll have a vodka martini.
How many olives would you like?
81.
In 2K25, a majority of the players on teams are literally 80 or above. Remember the days when players like Rudy Gay or Andre Iguodala would be rated low 80s, but have phenomenal games. Those days are far over. The talent gap between almost every player on the court is so tight now. Each game is going to ultimately feel slow, uneventful, and low scoring because everyone matches each other's talents, having similar speed and defensive skill. Yes, badges do change this to a degree, but again, you better green your shots if you want to see them actually take effect. Sliders can also change this as well, sort of creating a separation between star and role players, but I didn't have to change anything in past 2Ks. Because of the narrow margin in player ratings, it absolutely ruins My GM and My Eras if you play more than one season. Now, if you want to learn more about this and why that's the case and why you probably shouldn't start any sort of franchise mode in NBA 2K25, I highly recommend you watch Soft Drink TV's NBA 2K25 video on this horrific issue. Essentially, just to sum it up, this actually causes all teams to constantly lose their superstars, which makes it no fun for anybody. They have done a few things right over the last few years. For one, the Jordan challenges in NBA 2K23 were a nice refresh of what 2K11 did, obviously revisioning it with updated graphics and adding 5 more moments to the challenges from 2K11, such as the UNC versus Georgetown game and an Olympics match. Another thing I love is the concept of the My NBA eras, allowing you to pick where you want to start your franchise in terms of the history of the NBA, the 80s, 90s, 2000s, or 2010s. Though, like I said before, if the game is broken in terms of the financial aspect with star free agents and CPU teams can't really be competitive if they constantly lose stars, this mode really isn't going to be fun for more than a few seasons. Another thing too, I spoke about how each NBA 2K needed their own identity to be marked as this classic title, and the absolute worst attempt at this was NBA 2K24. Putting Kobe on the cover, Visual Concepts strive to replicate what they did with the Jordan challenges, but with Kobe. However, it is the definition of half-assed, and that's not just my opinion. For one, the mode does not even include his possibly most important game of all time, which is the 81-point game that I referenced earlier versus Jalen Rose, or arguably even his second most popular moment of all time, and that is when he scored 60 points versus the Jazz in his last game ever. Now, yeah, that sounds pretty bad, right? But worst of all, each game will reward players with just cosmetics for my team or the city. So it was like this demo, because it only included 7 moments compared to the 15 in the Jordan challenges. So it felt like this demo of just people trying to be like, okay, well, play these games and then we're going to reward you with cosmetics for a money-making modes, which just felt dirty and wrong considering that he passed only 3 years before this game came out. As I spoke about the importance of each 2K distinguishing itself with an identity of its own, it's pretty clear to the community that 2K25 has no identity, and for several reasons. You can point to the game essentially being the definition of losing the plot, as the kids say, including numerous of pointless dialogue-filled side quests in the city that have nothing to do with basketball, or the fact that there is more of a focus on season pass buggies, skateboards, and even go-karts than fixing the issues I brought up before. Or maybe it's the outlandish fact that our beloved basketball series has spent most of the last several months promoting a third-person shooter within the game itself, but wait, hold up, it's DLC. What the heck has happened since the PS4 era? To make matters so much worse, first booting up 2K25, I was met with several ads for the season pass, but then the game forced itself to update, and what was I met with again? More ads for the season pass. But it's okay, it's all fine and dandy, because after that I was only met with an ad for, what? Hotels.com, until I was able to finally click on play now. In sum, the Blacktop we once knew, gone. The fantastic trade and financial logic in franchise modes, gone. Modes that paid homage to the NBA's history, gone. Balanced gameplay, gone. Working with little to no microtransactions, gone. A game that is a basketball simulator, barely still standing. And I don't even want to get started with the soundtrack itself. In conclusion, NBA 2K is headed into an era that only the likes of Madden has gotten itself into, and in my opinion, with the ads and microtransactions, this is to a such higher degree. Eventually, we can only hope that 2K has a trailer of a new game down the road that starts with, "We've been listening," and fixes these headaches. But I've worked at companies like the very one that makes this series, and it's mostly just about beating out sales goals and expectations that were built on past successes. And those sales expectations only get higher every year, no matter what. And selling VC helps them get there. It literally took me maybe 3 minutes to think of a few things that would make a distinguishable 2K once again since 2K16. But let's be honest, they'll never do anything like this because, well, they just want to sell VC. Firstly, a mode similar to NCAA Football 13 Heisman Challenge. Pick one of whatever, maybe 10 current players are offered in this mode, redo their career by going back to the draft combine, show out or fail, see what teams you end up on, and see how that changes the course of history. For instance, we can take someone like the Joker or SGA. Imagine if they went number 1 overall. How would that play out, and how would that change their career, say if either of them was on maybe Chicago? As for my second idea, I have kind of imagined this pick your own adventure type of My Player, again featuring rising stars. Now, you can go through the draft process and go through your own career as you would in any sort of My Player, but as you go, you'll have a choice of befriending or even rivaling Anthony Edwards, SGA, or Jalen Brunson, essentially growing up alongside them in the NBA. But from there, your choices will factor into who joins your team down the road, who you play against in rival games, or even who you play against in the finals. Essentially, this is a story all about who joins your side and who you rival for like 10 plus seasons. a similar dynamic to the storylines that we saw with like Wade or LeBron and Curry. Anyways, that's it for me, and hopefully this video helps shed light for the younger generation on what truly makes a great NBA basketball game, and that they decide to actually give one of these older titles a try. But in the meantime, please, if you're listening out there, the younger generation, do not spend any more money on VC. It's a waste of time. But thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and until next time.